We compared it. We compared.
We
haven't?
No.
That's super awkward.
Alright, take me up. Go.
Okay. It's a train
I
wreck.
don't know, 3 hours of sleep, man. This is
Too much sleep.
me too.
We compared Aeneas' shield with Achilles' shield from, Iliad and the Aeneid. So I guess I'll start. I compared the two by because they're both what ifs, but for Aeneas it's like what if he does fight, but for Achilles what if he doesn't? Because in the Iliad, book 18, lines 541 through 549, it talks about vineyards and prosperous cities with draped in gold and stuff like that on his shield, and that's if he doesn't fight, and he'll have a prosperous long life. But for Aeneas, in the Aeneid book 8, lines 989 and through 992, it talks about, that's just showing that he doesn't know the events, but I think he somewhat realizes what they mean. But it talks of the shield talks of Romulus, Porsenna, war with the Gauls, Rome's wealth, Cato, Augustus Caesar, and war with Egypt and Cleopatra. So it just shows that, in comparison, for Achilles, he'd have a better future if he doesn't fight, but for Aeneas, if he does fight, his descendants will be glorious and very prosperous.
Okay, so I examined the fact that in both the Aeneid and the Iliad, the people who kind of instigated the process of creating a new shield were both the protagonists and mothers. So in the Iliad, starting on about line 478 in book 18, Thetis requests Hephaestus to make Achilles' new shield, and then in the Aeneid, there's a bit of a conversation between Venus, Aeneas' mom, and Vulcan, lines 370 through 406, to request the making of his new shield.
One thing I noted in both of the texts was the use of ekphrastic poetry, if that's how you pronounce it, which is a Greek rhetorical, or it's originally Greek, it's a rhetorical device in which it's often a work of art that is super vividly described, but in this case it's, I guess the shield is a work of art, and so they vividly describe it, and it makes the scene feel more lively, it makes it feel more lively to the audience, it provides a story to the actual work, and so in the Iliad, my lines are different because I have a different book, but it's like line 565-ish for me, and it says, "There he made the earth, and there the sky and the sea, and the inexhaustible blazing sun, and the moon rounding full, and there are constellations, all that crown the heavens," which is a really kind of intense analyzation of what's happening on the shield. And then that continues throughout the rest of book 18 when they describe the shield, and then in the Aeneid they do the same thing. It's like lines 906, 907. It says, "Mid-shield, the pictured sea flowed surging all of gold, as white caps foamed at the blue waves, and dolphins shining in silver round the scene, propelled themselves with flukes and cut through billows." So both texts make heavy use of the ekphrastic poetry to describe the shield in a way that makes it more believable and understood by the audience, and it also serves as a form of propaganda to kind of demonstrate the beauty and the strength of their people, the importance of their people.
So kind of going off of in both texts, like the hero's or like the central figure's mom is the one who asked for the shield. It's also the person that they go to is like the same generic idea of a god, just for different cultures. So in the Iliad, book 18, line 368, it says that they go to like Hephaestus, who is like the hearth, or not hearth, like the creator god that works with like metals and stuff. And then in the Aeneid, they go to Vulcan, which is book 8, line 494. So like fulfilling the same role, just with different names for the different peoples that are believing in them. And then Hephaestus kind of works by himself, or like he gets all of the credit for it, whereas Vulcan says in line 590, like he's talking to the Cyclopses and like they're helping him make everything, but specifically the armor. And then both like the Achilles' shield and Aeneas' shield expand beyond the person themselves as much as they touch on the future of Aeneas' like descendants and Achilles' future. They also have some kind of aspect that goes out like bigger than them. Like line 482 in book 18 of the Iliad, it talks about how Achilles' shield has the earth and the heaven and the sea and the sun and the moon, all like much bigger than one person. And then Aeneas is like the whole future of Rome, which are his descendants, but it's also like this much bigger thing.
Something that I noticed is that the description of Achilles' shield feels much more detached and impartial, while Aeneas' shield is clearly, like Louis said, intended as propaganda, and it's trying to show that Rome is like great and powerful. Because Achilles' shield like often describes just regular people and like having weddings or people working on farmland, vineyards, whereas Aeneas' shield pretty much only depicts like glorious images of war or recognizable events. One specific thing I noted is that Aeneas' shield seems to describe these events as much more like they're much more like supported by the gods, because in the Iliad the shield it says 2 armies of glittering soldiers were encamped. Their leaders were at odds. Should they move in for the kill or settle for a division of all the lovely wealth the citadel held fast? That's in book 18, lines 548 to 552. But in the Aeneid it says Augustus Caesar leading into battle Italians with both senators and people, household gods and great gods. And then later on it says they're favored by winds and gods in book 8, lines 915 to 923. And this is a very like clear contrast, whereas the people described on Achilles' shield are not set on having war. They'd be like willing to compromise. They don't feel the need to conquer everybody else. But in Aeneas' shield, it's very much like Rome needs to win. They're going to go into battle. They have the support of the gods. They have favor. Like so they don't hesitate to go and fight. And also later it says on line 976 it says that conquered races passed in long procession. So it's reiterating that they need to have conquered people. They can't not fight. They have to, because they need to win and defeat everybody.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to the grade.
I was just talking about the similarities and differences between the two, what do you say, the 2 expeditions, the Aeneid and the Iliad. For myself, I like to do the similarities between the two. In both books, the reason that, I guess in the Aeneid, the young men go out with the intention of gaining honor and glory and gifts from the commanders. Now this is a long quote, so I won't read the entire thing, but 3:15, book 9, it says, "As for gifts, I will give you a pair of silver goblets richly embossed that my father got at the sack of Arisba." And then there's probably another 20 lines devoted to the types of gifts that they'll receive. In the Odyssey, line 215, book 10, it says, "All this might he learn and come back to it unscathed. Great would his fame be under heaven among all men, and a goodly gift shall be his." And then it goes on, not quite as in detail about the gifts they'll receive, but it's very clear that they'll receive honor and glory from the gods and their compatriots. And then there's just a quote that I liked when in the Aeneid, when he was talking about the slaughter of the enemy forces. In the Aeneid, he goes into greater detail about the way in which they had died. And then to kind of summarize that in my book, it has a little italicized quote that says, "A lion that has not fed rages through a sheep pen, mad with hunger as it mangles the flock. The weak animals stand dumb with fear, and the lion roars from its bloodstained mouth." I felt that quote better portrayed the scene than was portrayed in the Iliad. He only devoted a few lines to their deaths, but book 9 of the Iliad, he went into fairly significant detail with it.
I got a. Excuse me, Dan. Can I just a little timeout here, Carl? I think the observation of the location, about the location of the lion simile, in the Aeneid, really begs the question: where is the lion simile in the Iliad and the Odyssey? Okay, you don't look that up now. Write it in your notebook, okay, to look that up, because I think that this is an important thing. Virgil's clearly conscious of the lion similes, right? And where he chooses to put them, I think, is significant in comparison to where they appear in the Iliad and the Odyssey. So it's your little homework assignment. Go have a look and see where he uses the lion simile, where the lion simile appears in the Homeric poems, and what does that contrast suggest about the Aeneid?
Okay, I have one similarity and one difference between the two pairs. The first similarity is that they both like invaded the enemy camp during the night and killed the enemies in their sleep. In the Iliad, book 10, line 483, he began to kill, turning this side and that, and abject groaning rose from the man struck by his sword, and the ground was made red with blood. And that was the only line like describing the gruesomeness of the slaughter. And they both took like prizes from the enemy camp too. Diomedes and Odysseus took horses, line 513 in the Iliad, swiftly mounted the horses and flew toward the ships of the Achaeans. Euryalus and Nisus also killed the sleeping enemy and took prizes too, but the difference between the two pairs is that Euryalus and Nisus, they seem to be less prudent about the situation. When Euryalus stole a helm, and the helm shown and signaled the enemy their position, and that's why they were chased down by cavalries and then ultimately got killed. But Diomedes and Odysseus, when they were debating when if they should stop killing the Thracians or just to go away with the horses or to keep killing the Thracians, Athena appeared to them and said that think now of returning, son of great heart Tydeus, to the hollow ships, lest you return in full flight, and lest by chance some other god awake the Trojans. So I don't know if they were more prudent or because of divine intervention that they decided to stop killing the Thracians and went back with the horses, but that could have might have prevented their deaths by the Thracian hands.
Okay, so I had 3 similarities between Aeneid and the Odyssey and the Iliad. And so the first one was it talks about how Euryalus, it said he saw his friend. Well, this is about Euryalus. He saw his friend carried away by slaughter and lust for blood, and so this reminded me of Diomedes' conduct when he became so overcome by his bloodlust that he even wounded the goddess Aphrodite, despite the very no part of that. And then the next similarity I saw was they left a quantity of booty, solid silver, and so this was similar to Diomedes taking of Athena's statue from Troy. And then the last one was
talking about Euryalus, his mother. It says, "Endure my mother's tears. Will you, I beg, console her in her deprivation?" And on book 10, lines 408 to 404, page 270. And I just thought that Euryalus' mother, plays the role similar to the wife of Odysseus, Penelope, where she's waiting at home and racked with nerves over whether her loved one is alive or not.
Alright, so okay, so group Cherry. Yeah, I have a similarity between them. In book 10 of the Aeneid, starting at line 508, this is Pallas to his troops. "Friends, where are you bound? I beg you now, by all the brave things you have done, the wars fought through, your leader, good Evander, with my own hopes of emulating him, put no faith in retreat." So this is him rallying his troops, right, and making a deliberate choice to push forward in this fight. And that's very similar to Patroclus, who also did the same thing. Both sort of took advantage of when tides were turning a bit, and it could be interpreted as hubris to assume that it would have kept going in that way. So in the Iliad, that's in book 16, starting at line 684. But Patroclus shouting to Automedon to follow with the horses made for the Lycians and Trojans, blinded to his great folly. Fool, if he only had observed the son of Peleus' command, he might yet have escaped from the fated evil of dark death. So, again, in both cases, they assume they can keep that momentum going without really any harm coming to them. But since they're both fated to die, it doesn't matter how confident they are in their abilities or how good things are going for them, since fate is fate. So I think the reason Virgil includes this is to reiterate again the point of how important the fate of the gods is to the Romans, especially in matters of war.
Okay, I had a difference kind of concerning fate. So in the Iliad, book 16, lines 764 through 767, it says, "So Zeus first took the courage out of Hector's heart, so that he jumped into his chariot and turned to flight, calling to other Trojans to run back, for he knew that Zeus's sacred scales were changing." And then also the Iliad, book 16, lines 805 through 807, "And Zeus can rouse a man for battle, as he did then, putting desire to fight into Patroclus' chest." So Zeus kind of changed the fates around for Patroclus and Hector to favor Hector. But then in the Aeneid, book 10, lines 640 through 657, it's when Pallas is praying to Hercules, and one of the lines, line 642, "A stranger Hercules, now lend your help to my great effort here, I pray." And so he turns to him for help, but Hercules tells him that he's unable to help him because his fate has already been decided and it's inescapable. So it's kind of a difference of how the gods view fate and whether it's changeable or not.
Okay, mine was a difference, mostly, between the Iliad and the Aeneid. And so in the Iliad, it has Apollo on the ground fighting, and in the Aeneid on lines, whoops, wrong book. In the Aeneid, lines 156, it just says, "And the fates will find their way." And so that line is different than in the Iliad, lines 848 and 849, where it just says, well, it's kind of similar actually. It says, "Deadly fate killed me," but the way that it's different is in the Iliad, the gods pick sides, and she said, they get to change the fate as the war goes on. But in this one, it says that the Almighty Father spoke, and as he spoke, that's when he said that the fates will find their way, so he doesn't have a preference for which side's gonna win. And so the way that I think that this applies to Virgil's adaptation, or why he did that in the Aeneid, was because
we heard in the plenary about how the Romans were just, they thought they were better than everyone else, and so the fact that they didn't know the fate, like which side was going to win, like it wasn't specifically said to them, but they still end up winning in the end, then it's like they're supposed to win. Like that's why they are such a great power, is because even though they didn't know it, that the fate was automatically pointed for them. Different than in the Iliad, how it kind of switches back and forth, and the gods have like parts and divides.
So I got similarities. In book 16 of the Iliad, starting at around 690, Patroclus is portrayed as killing all these people and doing, he's just doing warrior things. And then book 10 of the Aeneid, around line 510, you see Peleus doing similar warrior things. And these warrior things, are bringing down Abas, who faced him. And then you go back to the Iliad, you can see Patroclus, he killed Adrastos, Atunos, Electos, Primos, the son of Megas, Epicitor, and Monopolis. He killed these, and the rest of them returned back to the base, so basically flee. So I see similarities of warriors. The only difference I see is how God talked to Patroclus, talking about how it's not fated for the Trojans to be sacked under your spear. But other than that, I see a much similar description, but basically stories of warriors who got killed in battle.
But adding on to that, I said I kind of made a note of that. That wasn't my main point. That's why I didn't say it. But the Iliad was a lot more descriptive when it came to the battle, and it made it feel like the battle between the two. Why did I forget this? Hector and what's his face? That theirs was a lot more personal. It seemed like Hector like had a specific vengeance for him, but in the Aeneid, I didn't feel like it was as personal. Like there wasn't necessarily a vengeance. It was just kind of like, oh, this group of people versus this group of people, and these are the two best. And so both of them did have the names and everything of all the people that they killed, but in the Iliad, the author used a lot, or this person who wrote it, since it was how they described everything, used a lot more imagery, and so it was just easier to imagine. Like there was the lines 739 through 743 where it described like the eye falling out of that guy's head, and so that's just way more descriptive than anything you get here. It's just like, oh, they died, they win, and it was not as personal.
Fantastic discussion. Thank you so much. It was really good. I've got lots of things I want to respond to, but we'll do that on Monday. This is it. Have a